My guest today is Cindy Luken, an entrepreneur, modern mum, food lover and former biscuit baker. You may know her Luken and May brand, which she sold in 2003. Today she's creating a new business called Luck. Welcome to In Her Shoes.
Thank you.
We just heard that you sold your business in 2003. You're now 8 years later, moving towards the launch of a new business. How has business changed in that time, and what impact has that had on you starting a new business?
It's changed incredibly. I'm surprised with how quickly it's changed, and it's been driven by technology. It's been driven by the web. It's been driven by social media. It's been driven by, I think, these cloud systems that are now out there that I was longing for back in the late 90s and early 2000. What it's enabled me to do now is to look at what tools are out there that I can use that are, I suppose the other thing is that they're cost effective, they're almost free, and work out how I can use those to build a business in this day and age from scratch. And to make a business that is competitive with the big companies, because before in business you had to have a lot of money, you had to have very, very smart people to be able to operate these systems that you could set up to make your business run smoothly, and now it can just be done.
So Luken and May, for instance, was you had machinery, you were manufactured and distributed, and I imagine there was a lot of money tied up in a business like that. So what is available now that would have made that business perhaps even more successful at the time? We weren't manufacturers from day one. We pioneered outsourcing of key parts of the business. We pioneered outsourcing of manufacturing and of logistics, so third-party warehouse management, back in 1996, and that's what made our business successful. Back then, we used the good old MyOb. We used the ACT database for customer relationship management. We had Palm Pilots. But all of that had to be, synced. There were packages you had to dial into the computer at the office. And you actually had to have really smart girls, which I did, that were able to use this really quite challenging equipment to be able to keep at the forefront of servicing customers, because that customer information was vital. And so the key person in the office, the sales coordinator, had to have all that information on hand so that when somebody called in, she could respond and knew what was happening out in the field or what I'd been, whatever had happened. Now, that information is it's a click away. So that is time saving, it costs less money, therefore the entry into a business is so much cheaper. Which allows lots of people that couldn't have businesses before to be able to have businesses. And I think that's why we're seeing so many women at home working, so many mums going back to work, so many people saying, I'm going to have my own business because it's accessible now. One of the things that a lot of women who go into business don't get to see is that day where someone writes them a check for the business and they sell it. And yet you've done that once already. Was that planned? Is it part of your business strategy to look at selling? Because a lot of us think of, well, this is what I'm going to do till I retire.
I think if I go back to that first sale with Luken and May, yes it was, because when I started the business, I thought, how can I start a business? I've got no money. And I was sitting there with my accountant. He said, I'll get investors on board. And I said, what do you need those for? That's how naive I was. He said, to grow your business quickly. And I went, okay, great, fine. But the criteria that was that it needed to have an exit strategy at day one. So the plan first up was, as everyone's heard this probably 10,000 times, within 5 years to turn over 5 million. So that was plan. And so once you actually have that vision, that goal, you start to set the strategy in place to meet that. And that determines your decisions. And so that makes it grow. So you now have all these criteria that you need to meet in order to be making a profitable business that you can sell. Now with my new business, it's exactly the same, right? But I'm phasing it. You know, I'm a bit smarter in the old world. I'm now phasing it. So I'm starting small. I'm not bringing investors on board. I'm starting the business cash flow positive. And the business, once again, is a product. It's in the beauty industry, and it is in makeup. And so I have a product. And so I'm phasing it. I'll start with that. Once I get to a certain point, I will then start to outsource some of the key functions. When I get to the next point, I might bring investors in if required. But I've also said, okay, in setting up this business with the ultimate aim to make it once again a big business, my goal this time is a $10 million business. In most likely 5 years, I'm now a bit more sort of spongy around the edges, because until I get through phase 1, I'm not 100% sure. But having that vision, it means I'm setting up the right way to begin with. And that's what's taking a lot of time, and that's what is very, very important, because anyone can just start a business, say, here's a product and start selling it. But unless you actually know that you can scale up, you can get the margin out of it to start not advertising, but to spend money in promotion, then you're not going to have a proposition that's sustainable to be able to grow. And that's what's really important, and that's what's really hard. That's what takes the time.
So let's break that down. So there's having the vision from the beginning, or it doesn't even have to be when you first start the business, but when you come to the point where you go, okay, I'm going to sell this thing.
No, vision from start.
So what if I've had a business for 5 years and now I think, oh, I want to sell it? Can I not get to that
Oh,
place?
yeah, no, you can. Absolutely. Okay, take your point.
But I need to set the vision.
But you need to
decide
set the
what
vision,
those
correct.
points are along the way.
Yep.
Anything else?
Well, deciding those points, you've got to actually think about who is going to buy that business when you're going to sell it, who is going to be attracted to it, and therefore set it up in such a way. So you're already thinking about your end buyer day one. So what would they want? Do they want a distribution list, for example, like a database of 40,000 people that they can sell to? Do they want a brand? For example, when Stuart Alexander bought Luken Co, they didn't have experience in building a brand, in having their own brand and owning a brand, and I had that. They were used to taking a brand that was existing and building it. So how do you have a brand that you actually own yourself and what's involved in that process? And so you look at what the end user is and you tailor your business to that.
So what else? If someone's watching and they've decided, I'm ready to get out, I'm ready to sell this business, is there anything else they should be considering?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is to get the business into shape so that the business looks good to be able to sell. There's obviously documentation that you need to get ready, so your sales pitch, and you need to find someone that can help you, a professional advisor that actually does that process for you. So they are approaching businesses in which would be attracted to your company. And obviously the other way is that people approach you and they actually want to buy your business, and that's where you then start thinking, oh, okay, here's a new proposition, but you would go through that process again to get the best price possible.
Great. Thanks again for joining us.
Pleasure.